Hi, guys. This is Susie Spatafora from Richmond, Virginia. I just wanted to ask you what your favorite websites or tools are for trying to do your travel hacking and using your points and miles wisely. My favorite are Google Flights, autoslash.com, and juicymiles.com. I'm interested to hear what your favorite ones are.
So I've met Susie, and she is dynamite at travel rewards. She doesn't play around with travel rewards. So Susie, let's see, Brad. I'm curious to hear this answer as well.
Yeah, Susie told me she was going to send in a question before, and I'm like a little bit nervous about it because yeah, Susie is a true expert in this. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on one that she mentioned, Auto Slash. That's a really incredible option for potentially saving on rental cars. So that actually would have been on my short list for sure. Let's see. So I guess, starting at the beginning, I definitely want to keep track of my rewards points if I can. So I think what I used to do was in very me fashion was do like a ultra low tech Excel spreadsheet. And that, as you could imagine, is not the smartest idea because, there are expiration dates that you need to keep track of and et cetera, et cetera. And even the best laid system can get screwed up if it's not automated. So it seems like there are a couple of good options. There's awardwallet.com that has a free option to basically plug in your different rewards accounts, and it keeps track of everything. So that is very cool. There's actually a tool, and in fairness, I have not used this, but I know a bunch of people in our travel rewards group have, and they recommend it. It's actually a guy named Zach, who's in our FI community, started a site called travelfreely.net. And I think it's a way to keep track of your credit cards. So again, I have not used that personally, but I have heard it recommended to me multiple times. So that's something to consider. So I think, things like that get you a sense of keeping track of your miles and then your cards. I think that's really important. Again, going back to like, who is this good for, right? It's you need to be organized. I think that's critical. One thing that I use pretty often that's just kind of like a random little thing, but it's seatguru.com. Jonathan, have you ever heard of this?
I think I did use it. I used it one year, and it like has to do with just making sure like you kind of know about the plane ahead of time. Like I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure I used that for one of my Zem flights.
Yeah, no, you got it. You got it. It's neat because you can find out what the good seats on the plane are. So what's cool whenever you book a flight, whether it's, with regular cash or whatever, or with miles, you can see the type of airplane that is being flown. So you just really simply, like, let's say you're using, I don't know, Delta miles. You would type in Delta, and I'm just making this up. I'm not an aviation geek, but Delta 737-2. Again, I don't know if that exists or not. I'm just making that up, but you would Google that, right? And or just put it into seatguru.com. I would Google it probably, and SeatGuru will show up, and then it'll show the exact configuration that Delta has for that plane. And it has then most of the seats they'll be color coded. So it'll be like the last time I checked, it was like green, yellow, and red. So it's really, really obvious that, hey, you do not want to sit in row 16F because that's right near the lavatory or something. Like you find that out real quick. Or, hey, this seat is still in regular economy, but you get a little extra legroom because of that, right? So it's just a neat little tool to use to just kind of win, right? Like who doesn't want a better seat if they can get it?
SeatGuru.com, making flights more enjoyable since 2019. Ed has this monster list that he actually aggregated. And Brad, we'll find out which one of these you're actually using. But let me mention a couple of them and I think Susie would even be impressed by the ones that Ed has aggregated and used for this said 6-month flight around the world. One of them is the ITA software by Google. Now, Google Flights was actually maybe mentioned earlier. It's a great way. Yeah, Susie actually mentioned Google Flights. It's a great way to figure out, which airlines connect the two destinations together, and there might be stops. But there's one that dials that up even farther, and it is called the ITA software by Google. So if you're listening to the show notes, there'll be a link to that. to that link as well. But this one, the way it ups the ante even further, Susie, it includes a detailed breakdown of the fees and displays the timing of every single flight in your chart. So Ed uses this instead of Google Flights to find out, which airlines are going to meet the needs, which routing has the lowest ancillary fees. A lot of these routes, especially when they're more complicated, might have additional fees that are tacked on. If you could know that ahead of time, plan for it, gives you the ability to maybe make some judgment calls before it's too late on which flight is really the best for you. And then what Ed does is he actually searches for the award availability using expertflyer.com or the airline's website. And this is a great point if you're talking about the airlines. You're going to want to become familiar with the airline mobile apps. They're going to make your life a lot easier. So if you have 2 or 3 hops and you're switching between some of these ports, having your Delta mobile app downloaded is going to make your life easier. Having your United mobile app is going to make your life easier. And so just kind of being aware of which airlines have mobile apps is probably a good place to start. Brad, now I mentioned Expert Flyer on the go. Do you want to maybe mention a little bit more about what that is and why someone might be interested in that?
Yeah. So Expert Flyer, this as I used this a couple of years ago. It's been a while, and I'm just reading Ed's description here. If you ever want to go deep down the rabbit hole of travel rewards, the gold standard for finding award and upgrade availability is a paid subscription to expertflyer.com. So there are free options through Expert Flyer, but really the best way to utilize it is to use the paid subscription. And I remember it being very, very inexpensive. So this is not like a break the bank type subscription, certainly, but you were able to put in particular routes and set up these alerts. So if you were looking for like one particular flight, and you wanted to know the second that availability came up, you could get it. And it makes searching for so in fairness, the interface is pretty clunky, or again, it was the last time I used it, so it's not the most user friendly, but just like anything, you can find tutorials. And if you are really, really diving into the actual redemptions, and I think for a lot of people, Jonathan, again, this goes back to the 80-20 analysis of travel rewards. Is I think most of us who don't want to make this a full-time, hobby, or a lot of people are just ultimate optimizers and they love this, right? That's the Ed, and you're going to have a ball at Expert Flyer. You're going to have an absolute blast. For me, I'm not quite that optimized. So like I didn't use it quite that much, but again, if you are going to travel a bunch, probably 3+ redemptions a year, you might want to consider that, because it really does give you like an automated way to search. It really is pretty neat.
And let me add on to that, the individuals in our community that have really kind of built a lifestyle around this often try to find others to do it with them. It's more fun to travel with company. And so her point in case, Marla in our community is really known for taking the time to learn how to use these tools and putting together these awesome destinations and these awesome redemptions, and then coaching a small group of friends to go on this similar process, get the cards when she recommends it, build up this point stash, and then process their redemption at the same timeline. And they take these trips together. And that has led them to destinations all over the world. And so if you ended up being the person that's taking on that role of the planner, because you enjoy it, the final tool that I'll mention here, and Brad, then I'll get back to you for a final tool as well, but this is coming from Ed's like super high level stash here, is the Great Circle Mapper.
Oh, and I use this all the time.
Oh, nice. So this is a visualizer, right? So when you're visualizing your flights, when you're putting your trips together, and Brad, I'm going to actually allow you to explain the nuance of the distance award feature, because that's totally different here. But when you're planning your trips, it is actually really helpful to have a general sense of the distance between one route to another. And because some of the charts have a distance-based award chart. And whenever that is the case, the Great Circle Mapper is your best friend. So Brad, distance-based award versus maybe a standard redemption through a transfer partner. Give us a little, I guess they would all be transfer partners, but give us a sense for what the difference is and why someone would want to be aware of this distinction with how they approach the travel redemption plan.
Yeah, we kind of look at what we call sweet spot redemptions. And they are kind of, I guess, let's say inefficiencies or particular ways you can exploit different airline alliance partners and like their particular award charts. So, I guess that phrase award chart has kind of gone away to a large degree over the last handful of years, but the concept still holds. So on a traditional legacy carrier, like let's say American Airlines, this is again, it's too in the weeds to go into every last little detail of this, Jonathan, but we'll give the overview of this. So American Airlines, let's say, yeah, they fly from Richmond to Miami. Okay. So if you used American Airlines miles, at least at last check, just a round trip in the US of a normal distance is 25,000 miles round trip. Now, sometimes, and maybe in this time, they're running some specials, et cetera. We're just talking generalities here, right? In general terms, it's 25,000 miles round trip for a round trip in the US. All right. So that's using American Airlines miles on an American Airlines flight. But now, again, we look for sweet spots. So we know, and again, this goes back to the alliances, right? So American Airlines and British Airways are alliance partners in the One World Alliance. All right. And the cool thing is, British Airways is a transfer partner of at least two, and I think more, of the transferable currencies. So Amex membership rewards and Chase Ultimate Rewards, I know for certain British Airways is a transfer partner of. Okay. So if you have Chase Ultimate Rewards or Amex membership rewards, you can send them to British Airways. Okay. So still haven't given you any compelling reason to do that, but I'm painting the picture of, all right, you can use British Airways miles to book flights on their alliance partner. All right. So again, I'm in Richmond, Virginia. I want to fly to Miami. If I had British Airways miles, I could do that on that American Airlines flight. Now, why would I want to do that? Because the British Airways system is distance based. Okay. And I did not do this this search before we're doing it here, but I'll go to the Great Circle Mapper. So it's gcmap.com, and just in the top search box, it's RIC. I know the airport code, so it's RIC-MIA for Miami, and that'll show up as it's 825 miles is the flight distance. Okay, the actual distance of that flight from the geographical airport of Richmond down to Miami. Okay, and the cool thing, again, is that British Airways is a distance-based system. So I'm trying to find like their award chart here, but I think that should be 7,500 miles one way or 15,000 miles round trip. Now, don't quote me on that because that's I'm using that from memory from a couple years ago, but I think I'm fairly certain that's accurate. So that would be for that exact same flight, Jonathan, that exact same flight, just knowing that trick, that British Airways has a distance-based system, I could pay 15,000 miles instead of the standard 25,000 miles. So that is a massive 40% discount off of using the normal 25,000 American miles. So that is the case in point for it paints a picture of these sweet spots of using alliance partners and the inefficiencies or things that you can exploit in their award charts to fly on other alliance partners. And, again, it's just how can I win? And it's just understanding the rules. You're not doing anything wrong. That's the British Airways system, right? And as long as you know that, you can potentially take advantage of it. So anyway, long story short, gcmap.com is actually a really fun site to use, Jonathan. It's kind of cool to like any of those neat maps you've seen actually in our travel course. So Ed created this amazing travel rewards course at choosify.com/travel. And every single map that's in there that you can see like point to point with a little red line in between the airports, no matter how far or close they are, that was all created at gcmap.com. So it's actually kind of fun to play around. And I guess the concept is like these great circle routes. So it's like the shortest course between 2 points on, I'm reading this from Google, I'm not this smart, but between 2 points on the surface of a sphere. So it's kind of cool to play around and see like, hey, what's the longest flight I could take? And you think, oh, to go from here to Siberia is halfway around the world, but you're just flying over the top. It's actually really, for a geek, it's kind of fun to play around with that. So the actual practical purpose of that website is for these distance-based awards, but you can just have fun, frankly.
Awesome.